My God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my deliverance are the words of my groaning. O my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer me. And by night, but I do not have rest. Yet I understand that you are holy. O you who are enthroned upon the praises of Israel, in you our fathers trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were delivered. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. A psalm that is usually attributed, and if you read the entire psalm, just by the way it begins with the phrase, my God, why have you forsaken me? It is a psalm of anguish, a psalm where the psalmist is crying out as if he was confused, alone, and suffering. A psalm that could have been by David, more than likely. A song that is prophetic and messianic in nature, pointing to Jesus. The day that he was on the cross and that he exclaimed the same things. My God, why have you forsaken me? But I am a worm, he says. I am a worm, not a man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. Everyone that sees me sneers at me. They hiss at me or they separate their lips. They wag their head in disbelief, saying, commit yourself to the Lord and see if he will deliver you. Let him rescue him, because you claim that God delights in you. Yet you are he who brought me forth from the womb. You made me trust when upon my mother's breast, upon you I was cast from birth. You have been my God from my mother's womb. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. Many bulls have surrounded me, the bulls from Bashan. They have encircled me. These are strong bulls. They open wide their mouths at me as a ravening and roaring lion. I'm being poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It's broken, melted within me. My strength is no longer within me. It is dried up like a potsherd. I am so thirsty, my tongue cleaves to my jaws. And you lay me in the dust of death. For dogs have surrounded me. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. My hands and my feet have been pierced. I am stretched out that I can count all my bones. These people look at me. They stare at me. They divide my garments among them. And they're casting lots for my clothing. But I know, O Lord, be not afar off. O you, my help, hasten to my assistance. Deliver my soul from the sword, my only life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth, from the horns of the wild oxen. You answer me. Have you ever been given a surprise party? How did that make you feel? I mean, where you were really surprised, not that you could smell it and you knew that you were expecting a surprise party, but where you were really surprised. You walked in and the doors open and surprise, and you were shocked. How did it make you feel? Embarrassed? Excited? How do you feel when someone gives you a gift? I mean, really, when somebody gives you a gift, are you reluctant to accept that gift? See, I'm cut from a different cloth. My name is Jimmy. I'll take anything you give me, and I have no shame. My birthday's December 28th, and I'll take cash, credit cards, gift cards. I don't care. But most of us, or most of you, when someone gives you a gift or a compliment, you have a hard time taking it. But when you get a gift, most of you will say, oh, you didn't have to do that. Right? Yes? Somebody gives you a gift, oh, you shouldn't have. Why do we do that? Why is it that we have a hard time accepting a gift? And even when we give gifts, in order to make the receiver feel a little more comfortable, we'll say, oh, it was nothing. It was just something, something small. I was at the store and I saw this, and it was on clearance. Don't worry about it. It is nothing. Could it be because once we receive a gift, we might feel that we're now dependent on that person? We might be indebted to that person somehow. In our culture, for some reason, when we receive a gift, a lot of us now feel that I have to give them something as well. Because we have this misconception that a gift is what? It's a gift. And we don't need to give another gift as a payment for the gift that we got. But I think that our American culture is, and something that has caused us to have our independence, is that we are self-reliant. And that could be our hesitation of why we feel uncomfortable receiving gifts. But I want us to think about for a moment that any gift that we receive is not free. It costs someone something. I mean, even if you give someone a second-hand washer that you no longer want because you're replacing it with a new one, it still costs you something. A gift is something given, but yet there's no such thing as a free gift. And we need to understand that nobody is completely self-reliant. We all have depended on someone at one point or another for something. Right? We have all depended on someone. Whether it was you running out of gas, or you needed help with the flat tire, or you needed some advice for something. We've all depended on someone for something. So none of us are completely self-reliant. A gift is not free. So when we partook of the Lord's Supper here a while ago, the Lord's Supper itself serves as a reminder of an expensive price. And that's why I began with the 22nd Psalm. And that's why it's so significant that our brother read from 1 Corinthians 11 and Matthew 26:26. In Matthew 26:26 here, Jesus is sitting with his disciples and explains to them what the bread and what the fruit of the vine represents, what it is, or what they are. And then how the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 11 says, I gave to you, I'm giving you the same instructions that I received, that on the day that he was betrayed, this is what happened. But notice the word betrayed. On the night that he was betrayed, he gave us the gift. Who paid the price for you and I to have the privilege to assemble around the table and commune together? Who paid the price for us to assemble on the first day of every week as this remembrance, as this sacrifice is renewed afresh every week? I know that we're quick to say, well, Jesus did. But there's more to that. How about the Father? It's a great sacrifice for a father to give up his son, isn't it? And let me venture out to say even the Holy Spirit, because they were all involved. Our goodness could never have been enough for us to do this on our own. That's why somebody had to pay the price to give us the gift of salvation, the privilege to sit around the table. And you know that if we don't accept the gift of salvation, it will cost us, it will be deadly. And not just physical death. That I think we could all eventually deal with. But not accepting the gift of salvation will cost us with eternal death. And this eternal death is not one that once we die, it just ends, which would be good. But in a matter of speaking, eternal death continues on forever with a conscious mind that suffers eternally if we reject the gift of life eternal, if we reject the gift of salvation. Now, why would some people refuse or neglect the gift of salvation that God gives us? Why would some people reject it? You know, I understand somebody giving you a gift and you say, I don't want it because I don't want any strings attached to it. I don't want to feel like I owe you something. I don't want to get any mixed ideas here, thinking that now we're going to start dating because I can understand on the human aspect side of it. But why would anyone reject a gift of salvation from God? We don't reject the gift of life. We don't reject the gift of oxygen. We don't reject the gift of money. We don't reject the gift of everything else He gives us. But why would we reject the gift of salvation? Could it be because if I accept the gift of salvation, then now I must submit to Him? And admit that I can't do it on my own? Could it be? And that goes so totally against my psyche of self-reliance. John 3 and verse 16, we read about that high price. For God so loved the world. This is God's desire to reestablish a relationship with His creation. The relationship that He had with His creation was seen there in Genesis, when He created the heavens and the earth and paradise and put man and woman there. And it seems like every day God's presence was there with His creation. But when man decided to sin, that relationship no longer existed. So in an effort to reestablish that relationship, the Son had to step in as a sacrifice. So for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believed in Him, whoever accepts that gift of salvation, shall not perish but have everlasting life. He did the unthinkable. He did the what could not be compared, and gave mankind the gift of his Son. Way back in the Old Testament, as a type of what was coming, as a messianic prophecy, God has said to Abraham and Sarah in their old age that they would have a child. Sarah had been sterile and she had never had a child. And Sarah laughed. She said, how can I, being old and no longer through the cycle of a natural woman, that's impossible. And indeed, in their old age, they had a son. They named him Isaac. And by the way, Isaac, and Benjamin told us what names mean, at least Jabez, Isaac's name means little joker. And Isaac was born. And then Isaac, being the only son of Abraham, was asked or was told by God, I want you to offer him as a sacrifice. And that was Abraham's faith. And God had already promised him that through Isaac that great descendants would come and the Messiah would eventually come. So Abraham understood, if I do sacrifice him, God is powerful enough, honest enough, true enough that he's going to resurrect him, or something's going to happen. And indeed, he didn't offer him as a sacrifice. God stopped him. But that was pointing to what God would do with Jesus, and offered him as a sacrifice. So in Romans chapter 5 and verse 8, but God demonstrates his own love towards us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I want to end with Isaiah 53. When I said to you that all gifts cost something, the gift of salvation is easy for me to receive. I put my hand out in obedience to receive that salvation. But the giver paid a lot for it. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. One more passage. And I promise this one is the last one. 2 Corinthians 9 and 15. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift, and that is the gift of his Son. So now that we've already partaken of the Lord's Supper, the memorial doesn't end now. The thoughts continue for the rest of the day, as long as it is the Lord's Day.